much, and I decided why not tell you guys why I enjoyed it and why this game is unique and things of that nature. Alright, you should play this game for this exact reason. Don't worry about anything else, just play it for this. But let's be honest, this is fun, but there are so many things in this game that just make it awesome and amazing. And don't worry, if you miss this, it's coming up again, don't worry about it. It's so easy and fun to be able to just adapt to everything. But really, you should play this game because it is just beautiful. I mean, you're having a moment with the giraffe right now. I don't know who decided, hey, let's put a giraffe in there and hope for the best. But seriously, this game is beautiful in storyline, graphics, everything is just perfect in my opinion. How is this game unique in comparison to the 11 other games? I feel like it's unique because it's more in-depth. Now, to be honest, you walked through me for a loop and a half, but this game had me like in tears within the first 30 minutes, and if you've played this game, you know why. I compared The Last of Us to The Walking Dead just to show uniqueness because it's more than just a generic zombie apocalypse game. There's more, not necessarily drama, but you're not just fighting zombies, you're fighting other people, which make things a lot more complicated in the sense of just a video game. What we can learn. Sound detection. For example, Joel can throw bricks or bottles and they hit the ground and the zombies go for where that sound is located. And I feel like that'd be really cool to do something like that in terms of sound detection, just because that'd be cool to implement. Something else, now this game is huge, so I wouldn't expect every glitch to be found and fixed, but I would love to know how to be able to go through a game and figure out, pretty much just go through a game and find glitches and be able to fix them, like how to go through a game and do this. Finally, a different form of aiming. Instead of just having like the generic crosshair, you have an arc, which makes things a lot more difficult when you have zombies running at you. I mean, who doesn't like a challenge? The Dark Souls, you know. Did you freeze that? One more thing. I told you I'd be back. What I love about this one, Jeff, is the fact that on the camera you can see like the effect of like the splatter. What I would love to do is be able to have like something of an effect on a camera. So if something hits the camera, it would shatter or crack, which I found really cool. And that is the end of my presentation.
So my presentation's on Mass Effect 2. It's a RPG, third-person shooter hybrid. It was done by EA and BioWare. This was in the early stages of when EA bought BioWare, and they did not earn their bad reputation just yet in this progression of making in this part of the trilogy. A lot of things happen in this game. I decided to focus on the interactivity of it gives to the users. So this is your squad. This is the people that you command. You're Commander Shepard. You have people that you order around, interact with, talk to, do stories, do missions for. Each and every squad mate feels like a three-dimensional character instead of just a two-dimensional placeholder for you to just order around. And one of the high aspects of this game that I really think we should learn as game developers is the replay value. At the very beginning, you decide which class you make, which affects how you play the game in combat for the entirety, what you focus on, how you weave in and out, and how your abilities affect your squad. And then there's also the addition of all these little mini games, that there is a game within another game. There's the top left, which is how you explore and do missions. There's the right, you scanning planets, getting resources. Bottom left, looting. And, the last one was for getting to new areas. And then there's the cutscenes. The cutscenes are interactive, and it makes the characters actually do something instead of just sit by and watch. It actually invests the player in what happens because it makes them feel like they're actually doing something to progress it. And then there's the dialogue wheel. How you talk to a person affects what happens in your story, or at least gives you the illusion that it affects what happens in the story. And there's so much work out there done. People analyze the architecture of the wheel in general. It's pretty consistent throughout all the games, but in Mass Effect 2 there's a lot of additions with the interrupts and not just watching what happens. And this is combat, where you get control of what happens in combat. There's no illusion of control. You actually control what your squad mates do, what you do, what weapons they switch to, what weapons you get, what powers they use, what combos you can work with, as well as at the very end of the game is the suicide mission. Every single decision you make, side missions, main mission, anything, any upgrade you get, is all for the sake of doing well in the suicide mission. It's the end point of the game that you constantly work towards, no matter what you're doing. It's to be prepared for this final mission. And there's so many outcomes that can result from that final mission. There's check after check after check. Your squad mates may die. You may die, you may fail. It makes sure, if you want to do it perfectly, you have to be exploring and doing all the side quests. So I think as developers we can learn how to make the players invest actually what happens by making them control, or at least feel like they control what goes on. Any questions?
Alright, so I thought that Bastion would be a really good addition to the game canon for this class. It came out in 2012, 3 years ago now, and won a lot of awards at the time. Yeah, great game. Fun shit. It's an indie action-adventure fantasy RPG. Have fun with that. So it's set in this world where they invent all new like races and stuff, and their laws of nature aren't exactly the same. So you end up doing a lot of interesting things. It's in a calamitous setting, so like everything, the world's falling apart, and you have to go to the Bastion, which is literally like the country built this place, and it's like, hey, if there is a calamity, go here, and then literally there is a calamity, and so they go there. The story is dynamically narrated by this character. So, yeah. Also, the art's done really well. Everything in this game is hand-painted. So, they had to, like a designer had to sit down with some program and then, like, fill in everything by hand. They didn't, like, paint bucket anything. And it's beautiful, frankly. And, yeah. The music, also, is amazing. The soundtrack won awards, kind of like the Halo soundtrack. But, in my opinion, it's more impressive because it's an indie game. So this little studio went and put all this work into making a really nice soundtrack for a game. Quite compelling. I own it. I bought it. No shame. So everything's in this single plane, and things drop in and drop out as you walk up to them or leave them behind you. And it is a little bit two-dimensional, literally, and also in that there's not a whole lot going on in the gameplay. There's a lot of running around and slashing things, and yes, it is fun, because that's not a question. But they do a really good job of weaving everything else together, the music and the art and the dynamic narration, to make it compelling throughout the entire game, even though you're basically doing the same, like you press Y to attack. There weren't any action games in the canon list. Or adventure games, really, or RPG. Well, adventure if you count You're Walking, a couple do, but yeah. Also, there's a really big emphasis on everything going on in the background. And I think it's really important because the gameplay is incredibly simple, really satisfying, but the game's more than that, it's compelling. So everything else, not just like super satisfying gameplay mechanic, makes you want to play the game more.
I didn't say it was better. I said more notable. They get more credit. Yeah. Also, their soundtrack is made by one man.
Yeah. Is Martin O'Donnell not one man? Okay, so for my game, I picked Quake 3 Arena. Quake 3 is a very important first-person shooter in the history of FPSs. Though much of what I say pertains to the series as a whole, I chose Quake 3 today to focus on. Quake 3 Arena, if you've been playing multiplayer shooters for a while, it's pretty likely you know about Quake. Quake 3 was a game released in 1999 by id Tech, the same studio behind Doom and early Wolfenstein titles. It was the first multiplayer-only entry in the series. Quake is a traditional arena first-person shooter that has health, armor, and ammo resources. These resources can be replenished through pickups around the map. This makes map control very important as you want to be able to secure these pickups as they spawn on a timer. If your opponent gets them, he gets the upper hand, etc. Movement in Quake is pretty unique. There's a standard fare of walking, jumping, crouching, but there are also more advanced techniques such as strafe jumping, rocket jumping, plasma climbing that allow the player to utilize both the tools at their disposal in the environment to outmaneuver their opponent. Combat in Quake is unique because of its weapon system. There are only a handful of weapons, and there are no limits on the number of weapons you can hold. All of them behave differently, and most of them are projectile-based, which makes your aim very important when considering the quick pace at which Quake moves. When you bring all of these together, you get a fast-paced arena FPS that revolves around movement on multiple planes, precise aim, and map control. Players need to be able to think and react quickly in order to outgun and outmaneuver their opponents and secure the win. So why talk about Quake? It's an old game, right? But its influence can be seen everywhere. Modern series such as Halo, Team Fortress, Titanfall have all taken pieces of Quake's model and incorporated it into their own. For instance, this is a map of power weapon spawns in Halo that emphasize map control of specific areas. You want to be able to secure these weapons. Quake's also been incredibly influential through its engine. Quake's engine was the first to use polygons to represent 3D space instead of sprites. It means it's the first three-dimensional world, really. Lots of games use some bastardized form of the Quake engine to under everything. Hopefully this convinces you that Quake is an important piece of FPS history and that first-person shooters, frankly, wouldn't be what they are today without Quake. If you'd like to try it, there's an online version called Quake Live that's free to play.
Hello everyone, my topic is why every game developer needs to play Civilization Beyond Earth, and which is one of my favorite games. So Civilization is a typical strategy game, and more specific, it is a turn-based strategy and a